Jolly good show, Major.
Will the red-hot Seahawks be chilled to the bone by the climate of Minneapolis? Does Adrian Peterson really think Marshawn Lynch is the league's second best running back? And when are we going to hear from the NFL about Peyton Manning? Thanks for tuning in. This is Rob English, your Socal Seahawk, and this is another edition of Short Yardage. We made it. We have made it. It is the postseason. Everything starts from scratch for 12 teams. 12 teams have done what they had to do to get to the dance. And now it's more or less, everybody's 0-0. No wins, no losses. The only difference now is you win or you go home. No redos, no next week. It's a championship game every game. That's right up the Seattle Seahawks alley, because we always preach that. Championship week every week. It's going to be freezing cold in Minneapolis on Sunday afternoon. Sunday morning if you're on the West Coast. The forecast is calling for right around 0 degrees around kickoff. But with the wind chill, they're talking about temperatures reaching 20 below. 20 below. That is such an unreal type of cold. I almost don't even believe it's possible. I know it is, but it's almost unbelievable. And I suppose only people like me can say that because I've never experienced it. But I'm sure there's plenty of what do you call a Minnesota? A person who lives in Minnesota, a Minnesotan. Whatever they're called. I'm sure there's plenty of them who know exactly what this is all about. But I couldn't even imagine. All right, I'm from the Pacific Northwest. I was born and raised in Bremerton, Washington, about an hour west of Seattle. It gets cold up there, but nothing like that. 20 below 0? Are you kidding me? And then you want to go out and play a game in it? Now, I get this guy's jobs. They're doing this for work, but still. 20 below 0 is unheard of. They should postpone the game. I know some people would say that this is football's weather. This is what it's all about, playing outside in the elements. I don't know if I wholeheartedly agree. $20 below 0 is cold enough, literally, to cause frostbite within minutes on any portion of exposed skin. Frostbite. Literally, frostbite is very damaging. If you have a legitimate case of frostbite, that means that your skin was frozen to the point that the cells actually die. You could suffer frostbite bad enough to have skin removed because it froze so much that it died and is never going to come back to life. These guys got to go play football in this. I'm not even sure what to expect. If this game was being played in any type of reasonable conditions, this is Seahawks all day. I know that last time we played them, you can't really go based on what happened last time around. But in this situation, this is one where I would go based on what happened last time around. It was completely and totally obvious that Teddy Bridgewater was in way over his head against the Legion of Boom. We just completely put the brakes on Adrian Peterson, and that was all we had to do. We put the brakes on Adrian Peterson and let Teddy Bridgewater give the game to us. In a matter of speaking. In a manner of speaking, that's basically what we did. The passing game has got to be all but insignificant in this game, right? 0 degrees up to 20 below, or as low as 20 below with the wind chill. The kicking game, non-factor. The passing game, very little factor. It's going to be who can put the big boy pants on, probably a few layers of big boy pants, and run the ball. Sure tackling is going to be instrumental in this game. I can totally see this turning out to be one of those situations where the team that tries to throw the ball too much is going to end up throwing some interceptions, some tip drill interceptions. Now, I don't know if it's, again, I can't decide which one it's going to come from, which side it's going to come from. I can see, Russell Wilson likes to gun those balls in sometimes, on those little hitch routes. They likes to throw hitch routes into the tight ends and sometimes those balls come out a little bit high. In this cold weather, I can easily see Russell trying to gun one in there and it bouncing off of Jermaine Kearse's hands or Luke Wilson's hands. And, in this type of game, that tip drill ball is gonna get caught. It's gonna bounce off someone's hands right into the waiting hands of a defender. Now that could happen on both directions. But I know it can happen to Seattle because of the way that we play. Russell Wilson, that's a common play for us. Drop back, gun it in there real fast. The good news is if it does happen, we're going against an offense that more than likely will be giving the ball back to us. The kicking game is going to be a very, very real issue as well. Field goals, I suppose maybe you'll see a lot of, not a lot, but maybe you'll see a unusual amount of 2-point conversion attempts just because this game, if the wind gets as crazy as they say, the forecast says it could get. And with it being that cold, you're almost, setting yourself up for failure trying to kick an extra point. If the extra point is no longer, an option that is, a sure option, you might as well go for 2. If you can't guarantee you're going to get the extra 1, why don't you go for the extra 2? It's going to be a running game anyway. Just put your big boy pants on and push forward. So I am looking for 2-point conversions in this game. Beast mode is back. Marshawn Lynch, the prodigal son, returns. Now, what's he going to do? Now, there's really only 2 ways this can go, right? There's really only 2 ways this can end up going. Marshawn Lynch comes in, his first game in quite a while. He's been away from the team. He's been doing his thing. Whatever. So he comes in. He's out of football rhythm. He's out of sync with the offensive line. He's out of sync with the rhythm of the plays. And he ends up, not being a force for us at all. Or Marshawn Lynch has been away from the game for a while. He's been training and doing his thing. He's back with the team. He's fresh. He's rejuvenated. He's strong. He's fresh. He's fresh. And most importantly, he's fresh. I don't know what is more, what is more appetizing as a Seahawk fan than seeing a fresh Marshawn Lynch come on the field. I mean, what more could you want than a fresh Marshawn Lynch right at playoff time? You don't get that, right? Whoever gets that? What team gets their best player fresh going into the playoffs? No team. Every team's players, their best players are the ones that got them into the position, got them to the point to make the playoffs. Their best players are players that have been battled and bruised and beaten for 17 weeks. Right? 16 games, 17 weeks. They've been beat up. So they're never 100% going into the playoffs. In our case, we're going to have a fresh, hopefully anyway, a fresh Marshawn Lynch. A fresh Marshawn Lynch added to to an offense that has been reborn or spawned into something much different than it was before Marshawn Lynch left. I said in my previous video, I think the best thing that ever could have happened to the Seattle Seahawks offense is for Marshawn Lynch to get hurt. And that's not a never wishing any ill will on Marshawn Lynch. I'm simply surmising that in his absence, we've been forced to do something different and we have blossomed into a new great thing. And if things go the way I would expect them to go, the way they should go, the way we all as 12s want it to go, when you add that element back into the equation, we should only get that much better. We should indeed not revert back to what we were. I don't even believe we should revert back to what we were when we were better last year. With winning more games. Even revert back to the year we won the Super Bowl. We should be a new team. We should be a brand new team with Marshawn Lynch coming back. We should be different than last year or the year before with Marshawn Lynch in the lineup. We should be a brand new team. It should be Seattle Seahawks 3.0. Bigger, better, and faster. Adrian Peterson, when asked about Marshawn Lynch, he says that he thinks Marshawn Lynch is the second best running back in the NFL. Obviously alluding to the fact that he's the first. And a lot of folks might agree with him. I certainly won't try to sit here and explain to anyone who will listen why I think Marshawn Lynch is better than Adrian Peterson. Sometimes I don't even think Adrian Peterson is human. He looked very human against the Seattle Seahawks defense, but Adrian Peterson suffered what at one point was known to be a career-ending injury, and came back the following year and nearly broke the NFL the single season rushing record. That blew my mind. That's like some superhuman Bruce Lee type stuff. Like Bruce Lee wasn't human, and Adrian Peterson is right about that level. So he says that he thinks that, in his interview, he said something to the effect of, I'm paraphrasing, his lateral movements are really good. He says, I think I have a little bit more speed than him, but he's really good at all the things he's good at, yada, yada, yada. So, and I'm reading into it, and I try not to be one of those guys who reads too far into things and makes something out of nothing. I don't do that. Forest for the trees, right? So I wonder, is this just a diplomatic statement by Adrian Peterson? Just saying something that is, even keel, if you will, and not gonna say, oh no, Marshawn Lynch is, he alright, but he's, he ain't no me, he wouldn't say that. But it's not exactly a stretch for a guy like Adrian Peterson to assert that he's the best running back in football. I mean, how are you going to argue that? And he's saying that Marshawn Lynch is the second best. So, I mean, honestly, it's really a compliment. If the guy who is the general consensus best player at a position tells you you're number two, you got to take that as a compliment. You can't take it as a diss, because you're going to have a hard time finding people that are going to agree with anyone who says that Marshawn Lynch is better than Adrian Peterson. I think most people would say if you put Adrian Peterson on the Seattle Seahawks, he would do better than Marshawn Lynch. I think most people would say that. And it may or may not be true, but I think most people would just assume that because one guy is Adrian Peterson. And again, he's not human. So I don't know. Is Adrian Peterson just trying to not poke the bear? Now, I could definitely see Adrian Peterson saying some stuff, making Marshawn Lynch, just lighten that spark, just enough of spark to get, somebody to go off during the game. And maybe he's just trying to avoid that happening, and so he's just tossing Marshawn Lynch a bone, But I tell you what, Marshawn Lynch is. Among active players, Marshawn Lynch is the best running back in postseason football. The best. The best running back in postseason football is none other than our Marshawn Lynch. 187 attempts in the postseason. First. All right, that's just attempts, right? Who cares? Well, 9 touchdowns in the postseason. First. 917 yards in postseason football. First. The yards is the best part. The yards and touchdowns is really the best thing. Obviously, the attempts are just attempts. You can have 1,000 attempts and not get nothing, right? But anyways, Marshawn Lynch is the best running back among active running backs in postseason play. It's going to be really interesting to see how we implement him into the game. Are we just going to throw him back in there? Is he going to, I imagine he's conditioned. I certainly wouldn't guess that he's out of shape. He's not going to need to get back into football shape, I don't think, right? He should be, right where he needs to be. I imagine he hasn't forgotten the playbook. But with all the, The running game has been sufficient without him. So again, it stands to reason that with Marshawn being added back to the mix, it's just got to be that much better. Not a whole lot to talk about that. I guess we'll have more to talk about after the game. What's going on with Peyton Manning? And I guess I'll talk about two things with Peyton Manning. Number one, the Broncos are going to start Peyton Manning, and there's a lot of talk amongst the sports radio types about whether it's the thing to do. They said, no, go with Brock. Brock's been in there. Brock's been doing his thing. He's got them, kind of where they are. I disagree. I think you put Peyton Manning in there. Forget the fact about, Peyton Manning's postseason record. As bad as Peyton Manning's postseason record is still better than Brock Osweiler's. You got to put the guy in who's been there before. And again, another situation where a guy's been rested. He's coming in, I'm sure, about as fresh as you can expect someone his age to be. And if push come to shove, you can always put Brock back in there. But when you listen to those players talk about how there was a difference in the huddles, there's a difference on the sideline, everything just changed. When Peyton Manning went in the game, it uplifted every player wearing a Bronco uniform. Maybe with the exception of Brock Osweiler. Their spirits just were risen. So it may or may not really matter whether or not Peyton Manning can throw the ball harder or faster or stronger or longer than Brock Osweiler, because we know he most certainly can. But when a single player makes all the other players around him play better, that's invaluable. Peyton Manning on the field makes those guys feel better about themselves, feel better about what they're doing. Every step they take it a little more surely because they know that the sheriff is on the field. So I agree with the go ahead and start Peyton Manning. And if the what hits the fan, you can always go back. You can say, hey, all right, you know what? Peyton, we tried it. You aren't ready. It's time to put the kid in. Let's hang it up. At least that way, if Denver loses, because really, I mean, Kubiak is in a hard spot. He's between a rock and a hard spot. No matter what he does, it's going to be the wrong thing if they lose. Whenever they lose. Unless they win the Super Bowl, no matter what he does, it's going to be the wrong thing. If he plays Peyton Manning and they lose, obviously, it was so obvious that he should have started the kid. How are you going to put in broke neck Peyton Manning who he has no feeling in his hands and he can't do this and he can't do that? You already benched him. How are you going to put him back in if they lose? But if he starts Osweiler and they lose, how could you not put in Peyton Manning? How could you not put in the soon-to-be Hall of Fame Peyton Manning, the man who has a Super Bowl ring, the man who's been in this position a million times over? How can you not put in the sheriff? Why would you put the kid in? The kid didn't even play all that great for you when he was playing. There's a healthy argument that the Broncos only won as many games as they did because of their defense. Brock Osweiler did not blow the socks off of anybody at the quarterback position. He was a workable option. 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He took 23 sacks. So, I mean, how could you start that guy over the sheriff? Quarterback rating of 80-something, I believe it was. 86.4. Those will be the words said when Denver loses, if Denver loses. It'll be, why would you? And it doesn't matter which way he goes. It'll be, why would you do that? But I am more interested in where is the talk about the Al Jazeera investigation. It's just so conveniently being ignored. The world is just being left to make their own assumptions. And the old folks who have grown to love the Manning family, especially Peyton, the ones that see him as this, hero, this role model, this, if your son grew up to be half the man that Peyton Manning is and you've done all right, they just refuse to look at the obviousness of the situation. And I don't even mean to say that I believe wholeheartedly that he took the drugs, HGH, or Delta 2, whatever it was, I think it was HGH. But if you look at the situation that he was in, and you look at the supposed evidence, it just makes too much sense to not be true. It makes too much sense if you just step back and look at it with some objectivity. You have to be objective. You can't be subjective. You have to be objective. Okay? You can't subject different things to the question. Okay? You can't subject the persona of Peyton Manning, the perceived persona of Peyton Manning. You can't subject his track record. You can't subject his, what people think of him. You have to take all that away and look at the facts. That's being objective. And that's what you have to do and really consider what's more likely than not. The facts are, Peyton Manning came off of a surgery for a broken neck. It's unreal that a player in this league, this hard-hitting, fast, just violent league, this violent game that we play, had a broken neck and came back and played football. They say that they sent HGH to his wife at one place or another, whatever, it was to the Manning estate, wherever it was. They sent it in his wife's name apparently, but they sent it. I mean, obviously this is stuff that we haven't seen any video footage of. but they say this is what it is. And this is not a report that came from TMZ or Bleacher Report. It's come from Al Jazeera. And the league is just not even addressing it. They addressed it for a quick, hot second when it just released, when it just launched, and then that's it. They don't want to talk about this. Why would they? Why would they want to launch an investigation into whether or not their bell cow is hopped up on drugs? The NFL knows these players take performance-enhancing drugs. It's no secret. All the Al Jazeera, report did, and let me be completely honest. I am not a fan of the way that Al Jazeera went about doing this. I'm not a fan of it at all. I think that guy Liam Collins is a word that I won't use on this show. If it was this is one of my other YouTube videos that I do, I would speak those words. I try to keep it a little bit clean around here. But I think that was really, really poor. I mean, I guess when you go covert, you go covert, and I get it. But I don't appreciate it because, you're drawing an attention, you're making something bigger that doesn't really need to be. I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of I'm being a hypocrite. Because if a player on my team got popped for performance-enhancing drugs, I'm totally going to be upset with him. But I know they take them. A lot of them do, if not most of them. The NFL knows they take them. And that's why the testing process in the NFL is so elementary. Because they have to be able to say, hey, we're testing. But they don't really want to catch them. The testing is so elementary that they catch every once in a while, they catch one guy here, one guy there. That way they can say, hey, we are doing our damnedest to make this game even. And we got to be able to, say to the mothers of the world and the parents of the world that let your kids play football and become an NFL star because we do things right around here. Give me a break. So, I am very, very interested to see what's going to happen with Peyton Manning, what's going to happen with this whole thing. He hasn't announced that he's going to be taking, filing any lawsuit against Al Jazeera. Red flag. Anyway, I guess I'll get back to that when something new happens. Saturday and Sunday, we have got wild card playoff football. So I looked into it. I mentioned in my previous show. I looked into it a bit anyway. Didn't go back a few years. And yeah, this is the first time, at least in a long time, that we have both conferences playing on their own day. Both the AFC games are on Saturday. Both the NFC games are on Sunday. I'd never seen that before that I've noticed anyway. But that's how they're doing it this year. And it actually kind of makes sense. I was thinking about it. I was like, okay, well, at least if they do it this way, you don't have to wait till the end of the weekend to find out who's going where. Right? That means on Saturday, we're going to know out of KC and Houston and Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, who's going where. And sometimes you kind of know that already. Like if the 6th seed wins, they're going to play the number 1. Right? But if the 6th seed loses, then it depends on what the other game goes, how the other game goes. So I think I'm guessing that's why they're doing it this way. That way, there's no way that a team has to sit and wait for the next day to find out what team they're going to play. You find out that day. And it appears, let's see. Yeah, it looks like they're going to do the same thing. It'll be the same way for the divisional round. So, looks like there is a rhyme and a reason. I believe that's what it is. No waiting around. I don't usually do picks. I'm not a pick kind of guy. Not typically anyway, but I'm thinking about, I'm going to do picks here tonight. But I don't typically do picks because it locks you in. It locks you in, and it definitely, once you make a pick and you put it out there, you are saying, hey, this is what I think I know about what I think I know, and you better be right. Because otherwise, you lose credibility. If you can't pick a winner, then what is that? That calls into question your ability to know the game. Calls into question your ability to understand the game, see things for what they are without just being blind in your faith. And, oh, well, I like this team better because they have Adrian Peterson or they have Marshawn Lynch. You got to look at the game deeper than that. People who consistently pick winners know something more than people who consistently pick the wrong team. I'm not trying to get all philosophy down here, but so anyways, I digress. Saturday, 1:35, Kansas City at Houston. This is a tough one, I believe. A few of these games are tough. They're all tough, actually, except for ours. Kansas City at Houston. Kansas City got to be the team that got to be going there and just beat them up, right? They've been all but unstoppable the last 10 weeks. But there's still that in the back of my head, I still am always waiting for Alex Smith to go into the game and just lay an egg. I'm waiting for Alex Smith to go in and just lay an egg. But I got to take Kansas City on this one. And more than likely, it's probably going to be, I'll say Kansas City by double digits in this game. 13 points. The evening game, Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Another situation where you got a team coming in hot. Pittsburgh is mostly hot anyway. They gave it up to Baltimore, but Pittsburgh looks real good. And Cincinnati is playing without their quarterback. So it just doesn't seem reasonable to expect Cincinnati to go in and continue, how well they've played without the man that, basically got them there. I say Cincinnati does put up a good fight at home. But I gotta say that Big Ben, and his receivers are going to prevail. Probably a high scoring game. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams score in the 30s, but I'm going to take Pittsburgh by 6. Sunday morning, my Seattle Seahawks, your Seattle Seahawks 12s. The Seattle Seahawks going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Talk about a frozen tundra. It's going to be freezing cold. things like turnovers are going to be huge in this game. Huge in this game. I mentioned earlier that, when you got players coming in who are fresh, you got to have an advantage, especially in a game like this where everything's going to hurt. And actually, Adrian Peterson is working on a sore back. So, little things like that. They're gonna play roles here. Both teams have great defenses. Minnesota's defense, Harrison Smith, and a couple other guys they're coming back after being banged up. Defense, it's got to be a defensive battle. I certainly don't see another blowout like we did to them a few weeks ago, but I got to go with my Seahawks. Obviously, I got to go with my Seahawks. Right? I could probably just skip this portion. I'm gonna say Seattle by 2 touchdowns. I believe that we get in there and just keep on doing that Seahawk football thing that we do. And slowly but surely we're gonna work them to the point to where they just can't take it anymore. Marshawn Lynch, Bryce Brown, Kristen Michael, just 3 guys who are fresh running the ball, and just pound it. That defense is gonna get tired. Hold on to Adrian Peterson. If we just do the same thing last time, if we hold down Adrian Peterson, Teddy Bridgewater will sooner or later, if we just get in the lead. I called the game against Minnesota last time perfectly to a T. You get into a lead by 2 scores and take the game away from Adrian Peterson. Now it's gonna be a little harder to take the game from Peterson this time because it's a frozen game. So they're gonna have to run the ball, period. But if you get up by a couple scores, you gotta throw the ball. And the more times that ball goes in the air, the more times you're gonna have an opportunity for turnovers here. It's just too cold. The ball in the air is a liability on Sunday. And then we'll finish off the afternoon game, Green Bay and Washington. This should be an easy pick. This should be like the easiest pick out of all 4 games, but it's not because Green Bay has tanked. I'm setting myself up for more Al Jazeera talk, but I don't want to do it, but I kind of have to look at the facts. The Al Jazeera report talks about 25 or so different Green Bay Packers that Charlie Sly had an involvement with. And what do you know? What happens to the Green Bay Packers? They dropped 6 of their last 10 games. After going 6-0. So Green Bay is playing so terrible that is obvious as the pick seems to go Green Bay over Washington, even at Washington. You can't. And then you factor in the reality that Kirk Cousins is playing good football. And they're playing at home. I got to go at Washington against my better judgment. So I've got Kansas City. I said what, 13? I've got Pittsburgh by 6. Seattle by, I said 2 touchdowns, but say a 13. Spread is only 6. I say we double that. And I say the Green Bay-Washington game comes down to another last-second heroic attempt by Aaron Rodgers that will fall short. But they'll keep it exciting. 5 points. Washington wins. So if it goes the way that I'm planning on it going, Seattle will be going to Carolina. Take on these Carolina Panthers. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Seattle is better than the Panthers and the Cardinals. I understand. Don't anybody tell me about how they lost to them in the regular season. Just remember that those games in the regular season, Seattle had big leads, big late leads against these teams. Well, big late lead against Carolina. But in the Arizona game, we shot ourselves in the foot multiple times early, let them get a 19-point head start, and still took a late lead in the fourth quarter. Just couldn't hold on to it. The team the Seattle Seahawks were when we played Carolina first and we played Arizona first is not the same team. Not even close. And I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona loses to either Green Bay or Washington. Considering the way they, performed in Week 17. Some would say that some are saying that they just mailed that game in because, they knew that Carolina had no chance of losing to Tampa. So why try? Suppose it's possible. I don't know if I believe it. Make sure you guys on YouTube tune in to Seattle Sports Union. Look them up. Subscribe to them, especially if you're Seahawk fans. They have a weekly show. They talk Seattle Seahawks stuff. They talk Seattle sports stuff. I think I mentioned that I was mentioning all the Seattle Seahawks or the Seattle teams they talk about on my last show. And I said, they do the Seahawks, they do the Mariners, they do the Sounders. And when I was talking about the WNBA team, I said the Rain. That's how you know I'm definitely a Seattle dude. Because the Rain was the other women's basketball league before the WNBA took over. So what I meant to say was the Storm. Seattle Storm. The Rain was a team from a fallen league. But I will be on the show Sunday night after the game, 8 p.m. Pacific time. We'll be covering the game, talking about how our Seahawks beat up on the Minnesota Vikings in the freezing cold weather. Talking about, this, that, and some other stuff. Giving our commentary. I'm really excited about it. So make sure you guys tune into that. That's Seattle Sports Union. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on YouTube. Check them out. Good guys there. That's going to be it. Thank you for tuning in and listening once again. This is Rob English, your Socal Seahawk. We will talk to you on Monday with Going the Distance, celebrating the Seattle Seahawks moving on to the divisional round. Go Hawks.